r/Nosleep. Posted by u/Matt Gamara. Alt 3. I am a security guard in the ruins of an Inca fortress. Day 5 and 6. Day 5. When the midnight came, I was still in my supervisor's office, looking for Inquisition paper Hector told me yesterday. I heard the church bells, telling me it was day 5. In 5 more, I'd be leaving this goddamn place. But, then I remembered. There was no church here anymore. The last one was closed in the 17th century, after the Inquisitors left. The church has been in ruins for at least 400 years. What the hell? I said. I opened the office's window curtain, and looked out of the window. The fortress cathedral was suddenly rebuilt. I could see its tall bell tower from the little cabin. There was someone ringing its bell. I tried to take a better look. That's when I saw a small group of monks coming towards the cabin direction, with torches in their hands. I immediately closed the window curtains. I needed to find the Inquisition paper as soon as I could. I started opening all the archives drawers as fast as I could. Most of the files I came across were random documents about the museum, employees' contracts and taxes and visitors' records. I couldn't find anything about the Inquisition. I heard someone knocking the door of the cabin. I had to hurry. I went like a madman, throwing everything around and looking for the paper. Then I heard the cabin's door opening. They were in the waiting room. I hurried to the office's door and locked it with the key, hearing they knocking on the other side. They were shouting in a heavy accented Spanish, and some of them also in what seemed to be Latin. I grabbed one of the archives and threw it in front of the door, and threw one of the chairs in front of the window. I noticed that in my hurry, I had knocked down my supervisor's computer, shattering it in several pieces. Shit. I whispered, until I saw, in the innards of the computer, a file. I took it immediately, and opened it. The whole thing was full of dust and dirt, looked like it had been inside the computer for ages. Diabolici Spiritus Absumipata. This was written in the document's cover, along with an illustration of what looked like a demon wearing Inca clothing and holding torches. It had a lot of pages. Open up. I heard they saying from outside the office, and I noticed they were trying to break the door. I didn't know what to do, so I opened the window and jumped through it. I fell into a small amount of bushes, and as fast as I could, I ran towards the security shack without looking back. I fell almost 10 times, and ended up with several bruises, but I did it. I entered the security's cabin, and locked the door as fast as I could. Through the window, I saw the church tower and the monks walking around. They were not following me, as far as I could see. I realized I had dropped my flashlight somewhere when I was running, but I didn't know where exactly. If that wasn't enough, I only could power up the shack by activating the energy system, which was located outside. I had no option but to spend the night in complete darkness. I didn't want to go into the safe room just yet. It was too dark to do it, and I had no clue what I'd find there. Maybe if I sat down in one of the chairs and waited for the dawn I'd be fine. As the manual said, I just needed to keep quiet. That's why I almost had a heart attack when, after 10 or 15 minutes of complete silence and darkness, the ancient television turned on and started showing me a bizarre black and white film on maximum volume. I'm not kidding, I literally fell to the floor, feeling one of the worst pains I ever experienced in my chest. I started vomiting and struggled to breath, but couldn't. I eventually got better, but felt very, very tired. The TV was still on. The movie was a really old documentary about the fortress, showing a group of American researchers filming the place and talking about its history. I knew I had to turn that thing off, or whoever was outside would hear me, but I was just too tired to move, so I just stayed there watching. The movie went on for some minutes more, and I realized that didn't make any sense, because the shack had no energy. The documentary started to talk about the folklore of the fortress and its surroundings, and the researchers were having a conversation about the pit. I finally got up and slowly walked towards the television, still feeling my heart struggling. I guess smoking for almost 20 heels didn't help me at all. I pressed the button to turn off the TV, but nothing happened. Actually, something happened, but it wasn't good. The movie started showing the filmmakers mutilating themselves with rocks they found on the floor. I almost threw up again. I won't describe it here, but that was probably the most awfully horrible thing I've ever seen. And that's coming from someone who once worked as a janitor in a hospital. I threw the television on the floor, destroying it and stopping the movie. But then I heard footsteps outside, coming in the shack's direction. I unlocked the safe room, entered it, and then locked the door again. It was a very small room, completely white, illuminated by an enormous candle, and with a chair in the middle. The walls were completely covered with religious symbols and esoteric sigils. I sat on the chair and waited. I could hear them entering the cabin and looking for me. They were ripping the place apart, but for some reason, weren't finding the safe room. After some tense 30 or 40 minutes, they left. I could hear the monks leaving and talking about where to look for me next. I knew they weren't coming back so soon, but was too terrified to move, and ended up sleeping on the chair after some hours paralyzed by the fear. I woke up the following day with Hector slapping my poor face. "I've risked my life coming to work earlier to see if you were okay. So don't tell me you didn't find the paper," he said, with a cigarette in his mouth. "I found it, here it is," I said, as I gave it to him. "What time is it, Hector?" 9:30, he said, looking at his phone. "Shit, we have to organize the cabin before the others arrive." I got up and entered the main room, but the place was completely fine, even the TV was there, in its normal place. "Don't worry. They put everything they find in the wrong place back in its original place every night. Somehow they even fix things. That's why everything in the cabin hasn't changed position in more than 20 years," he said as he looked into the Inquisition's document. "Then how I still have the paper?" "Because for some reason they can enter the safe room. At least not all of them." "Can any of them enter the safe room?" "The stalker somehow gets to go anywhere he wants." "Who?" "The stalker. I think he's described in Special Rule 24 or 25. Anyways, I don't need your help anymore, at least not for now. I'll tell you when you are needed." "Wait. You must tell me who you are. What is this place?" "Well, it's difficult to explain. I work for a pretty big international agency. We secure places, contain paranormal creatures and protect the world. Or at least we try to." 2 or 3 seconds after he finished saying that, we heard a car arriving outside. "This must be Samir," Hector said, as he put the folder in his bag and exited the shack. The day, following that, was pretty normal, with only one weird occurrence. I initially had a hard time keeping awake, but after 1 or 2 coffee cups I managed to do it. The supervisor arrived at 10:15, and went straight into her cabin. "Don't worry, they probably have reorganized everything in there," Hector told me as we watched her enter and divided a cup of coca tea. But that wasn't true. She went out of her cabin less than 1 minute later, with what seemed like a worried or angry face. I started sweating when I saw she coming straight into my direction. "I haven't done anything," I said, when she approached. "Yes, that was pretty stupid, but I've never been very smart or stoic. I was lucky she didn't listen to me, because she had AirPods in her ears." "Hector, Protocol S1," she said as she removed the AirPods. "Already?" he said, kinda worried. "Yes. He's here." As she said this, I noticed her cabin's door was opening behind her, and I heard footsteps coming in her direction. She handed a key to him. "Here's the key. You know the rules, just check the computer, everything's in there. The password is Samipata68. She said as she ran into her car and left. I saw footsteps appearing in the trail of her car tires. "What was that, Hector?" "That, Javier, is the stalker. I guess I'm your supervisor for the following days. Now, let me organize myself in her cabin," he said, as he entered it. "It's 1949 now. I'm writing this in the security room. I just received a message from Hector. He said I received a letter in my house, and I needed to check it out. When I go home I'll say what it is. I'll maintain you updated." Day 6, morning. Yesterday I was pretty surprised when I came home to find 2 letters under my door. One was considerably most expensive than the other, with even that weird red thing they used to seal letters in the past. The other was mostly just a folder, and was probably delivered manually by the one who sent it. I looked first into the cheap letter. It had a weird symbol of a circle with arrows or something, a message and also what seemed like a contract. I'll transcribe it for you guys. "Thank you for your help getting us the Inquisition's document. As a retribution for all your trouble in achieving this task, we are giving you 5,500 Bolivianos and an invitation to join our organization as a C-class due to your experience with security. If you are interested, go to Santa Cruz La Vieja after your 10-day contract in the Samipata ruins is finished and go to the following address. Sorry, I won't put the address here for security reasons. Ask to talk to Professor Arnaldo Celeste." The expensive one had a symbol of an anthropozoomorphic head on its seal. I opened it. It was written in what seemed pen and a smelly red ink. "We can work together to bring her back. Meet me in the pit. Don't tell Hector or I'll come after you. Check your broken mailbox." Well, that letter was certainly scary, but I couldn't help myself. I opened the broken mailbox. In the middle of its dust lied a photo that seemed to have been taken by a Polaroid. It was the photo of an abandoned school bus in the side of a road. Even with me being tired as hell, I couldn't sleep that night. I didn't want to share very personal details before, but now it's unavoidable. Whatever lives up in that mountain is now toying with me, using my past to torment me. In the year of, if I remember correctly, 2006, I moved from Paraguay to Bolivia with my wife. We had to leave Paraguay due to safety reasons. Her grandfather was a secret police officer and torturer from the Stroessner dictatorship in the 70s and 80s. When this was revealed, in 2004, all members of her family started being harassed by the press and later by the EPP, a socialist guerrilla from Paraguay. We married in 2003, so I started being harassed too. In early 2006, they shoot her parents. Her mother suffered stomach and lung perforations. If her stomach fluid didn't leak out of her body, she'd be dead. Her father wasn't as lucky. 3 bullets, 1 in the neck, 1 in the shoulder and 1 in the brain. He's still in the hospital. This was the reason we needed to flee Paraguay. We bought a small but comfortable house in the rural and also small city of Samaipata. It is a city mainly dedicated to tourism and viniculture, with only 4,800 inhabitants. I worked in several different jobs: security guard, bus driver, car mechanic, construction worker. In Paraguay, my wife previously worked as a substitute teacher, until she was fired when her grandpa's secrets were revealed. In Bolivia, she managed to get a job as a primary school teacher. It was a good life. I really miss it. In July of 2012 she went to a 3-day excursion with her students and other 2 teachers to Cerro Potosí. They never made it to there. The police searches lasted several weeks, and detectives kept coming into my house asking questions until 2017, when the case was closed. Not a single body was found. But now, I could know where she was. I entered my car and drove up the mountain immediately. It was 11 p.m., but I didn't care. I still didn't have a flashlight, so I brought a lighter with me. When I arrived in the ruins, they were just like yesterday night. Completely empty and dark. Except they weren't empty. At the entrance, 6 or 7 hooded figures with candles in their hands were looking at me. I ignored them, entered and went straight to the pit. All along the way there were more and more hooded figures, and the bell tower was also back, but by that point I wasn't giving a damn. The pit had a red carpet and I think there were at least 20 of those hooded candle people on its sides. They were all singing in a language I didn't understand. The pit was not in ruins anymore. Its ancient stairs were back, and there were torches in its walls. I walked down the stairs for I think were 5 to 10 minutes. The hooded people were coming behind me, still singing. There were at least 100 of them in total. At the end of the stairs there was an underground cave, with rivers, waterfalls, golden Inca statues, and, at the center of everything, a golden throne, with piles and more piles of skeletons and bodies by its sides. Sitting on the throne was an old man, that dressed with Inca emperor's clothing, but instead of gold and silver, they were completely made of rotten skin and flesh. "Welcome, Javier." I saw his mouth opening, but his voice was coming from everywhere. I looked back, and saw that the hooded people were all kneeling behind me. It was a deep, weird and old male voice. "Who know, what are you?" I asked, looking straight into his eyes. Well, where his eyes were supposed to be. They were just 2 black holes, with a weird black liquid dropping from it, like he was crying. "I'm forgotten now, but if you had come 400 or so years earlier, everyone would know who I am. But now, I'm forgotten. Not only forgotten, but someone, is covering me up. This annoys me. You see, in the good old days, the Inca feared me so much they would appease me. They would bring sacrifices to me. I had 1 soul more per week. But now, I'm lucky if I can bring a person per lunar period. I had a good life. I miss that time. But you feed of their souls? No. I'm immortal. Then why are you doing all of this? You've killed thousands of people. Why do you need your wife, son? You have been living fine without her for 7 years. You're still able to eat, sleep or breath without her. Why aren't you happy, like you were when you came to my city? Because she made me happy. That's why I need those sacrifices, son. We're not so different. We just require different forms of happiness. Living forever is pretty boring if you don't find a hobby. But why you called me here? You want me to bring people for you to kill? No. I want to tell you where your wife is. She's alive? She's alive? I asked, almost shouting. If you call that living. At the garita you'll find a paper with the address. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't even know your name. Call me Supai, son. And other thing. I might want something in return. Bring your wife here tomorrow night. I'll be waiting for you. I ran to the garita as fast as I could, without even looking back. I got the paper with the address, entered my car, and hit the road. The journey is a long one. It lasts 8 hours. I'm writing this at a gas station in the way, while I have lunch. I'll keep you updated.